was criminal charges brought up against the father, because that is who admitted what happened. He admitted what happened in the hospital. Like, they told me she had a broken leg, and I was like, she has, both of her legs are broken, and her arm is broken, and her ribs are broken. Like, this was a lot more than they let on. He was arrested, and he bonded out immediately, and unfortunately charges were dropped 3 days before trial. Like, it was like a divorce. Like, he won 50-50 custody, and they were just like our first placement that we had, he was number 7, and the uncle wanted to keep all 7, but at the time when the child was born, he didn't have those resources and he wasn't set up. So we had him for 3 months, and in that time the uncle had gotten the beds and gotten everything stable and ready. And so when he went to go back to be with all of his siblings. Our 8-day visit with the pediatrician, and that pediatrician also made a claim against Oklahoma is not called CPS. It's called some anyway. Oklahoma CPS. So they made a claim as well, but they ended up leaving Oklahoma at that.
Awesome. So that's how y'all got to know each other. Was you took over the situation for this child that is now you've adopted.
Yes.
And she is yours.
Yeah. So in November 2021, she came into care.
Okay.
And I had no idea what a CASA was. I think he actually put it in your notes the first time.
Right, just to explain why I'm asking to come over to your house.
Yeah.
and see this child, yes.
Oh, yeah. It's very hectic that first week when you get placed with a child. It's like CPS is in your house, investigators are in your house, agencies are in your house, and Richard comes to my house and he's like, I'm a CASA. And I'm like...
Right.
So when situations happen in a home and different things, or a parent gets arrested, the things, when you think of someone coming and taking a child, like, because I have no idea. I'm so detached from that. Like I see in the movies, right?
Yeah.
The kid is taken right from a home, and you think, okay, they go into CPS or go into an orphanage. There's not like this big building where all these kids are.
Orphanages.
There's no orphanages.
There's no orphanages.
There's no like big building that all these kids are going to, and these people they're going to people like CASA that is appointed to take on special situations.
Okay,
gotcha.
So let's we'd love to start kind of the beginning of people's lives to kind of where you got to at this point, and we have 2 guests today, so we'll start with the mayor, right, and see how this goes. But I would love to hear, talk to us, tell us a little bit about where you grew up and your early life. And
so I grew up in southern Dallas County, down in Lancaster, and probably when I was about 10 years old or so, my parents became foster parents. I was at that point an only child, and my parents knew that they couldn't have any more children, but I guess they weren't done putting together a family unit, so they became a foster family. And so through the ages from between me being 9 or 10 through 16, we had various foster children that would come in. So I was familiar with that process. And at that time, I don't recall there being a CASA in Dallas County for those children that were in our home. Subsequently, my parents ended up adopting a few of those, so that's my siblings now. And so I was familiar with it from the adoption side as well as the court side, seeing that, and having sometimes those children going back to their to their parents and going back to their families. So, fast forward 2020, I literally heard a radio commercial talking about CASA Denton County. My wife had talked about CASA before and had showed some interest in maybe someday becoming an advocate. And so I was at a point where I was working at home before everything shut down. And I was like, that's probably something I could do. That's probably something that I would, be interested in. So went to the website, signed up for training, talked to a couple people that, that I knew that could give some insight on it. And July of 2020 became an advocate. And soon after that got my first case. And so near about a little over 5.5 years. I've been working with CASA, and that's kind of how I got there. But it did, trace back from my familiarity with the process growing up.
I can see.
Yeah.
Was it? So it sounds like it was a pretty good experience. I mean, you got to probably see a lot of it's. From personal experience, I mentioned before the podcast with you guys, I've come from a law enforcement background, and I dealt with what you guys see on a regular basis daily. I was the one responding to the calls, and you see a variance, especially foster homes. Like there's a variance degree of foster homes and how the children get taken care of, and there's good foster homes and there can be bad foster homes, unfortunately, in the system. And I'd imagine that living in the foster home, and not only can you have good and bad foster homes, you can also have children that are also a lot harder to deal with than other children. And so, opening your home to somebody else's children, it comes with all the emotional baggage, the physical baggage that came through, and especially with the children in the home, it makes it's a unique. You don't see a lot of homes with, not that they don't exist, but I didn't see a lot of parents with lots of kids, and then also foster. It was typically single or parents weren't able to have children, brought children and fostered, and a lot of parents are a little bit afraid or timid to bring other children into the house that maybe have problems or things that exist that are going on.
And then you see, like you saw being in law enforcement, you see some of the bad situations.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that might keep someone who otherwise would be interested in CASA from not doing it, because they don't want to be around those bad or sad situations. But being the person who can make a difference, and that situation is going to be bad for that child, whether you're there or not. Yeah. But you're the one that could turn things around and make a difference for that.
And I also saw a lot of really good, amazing situations too. I don't want to sound like people that didn't. There are also a lot of where I was responding, and it was because of parent conflicts that were trying to come back for the children and trying to get involved, and they couldn't.
Yeah.
And causing issues, or family members that had all of a sudden popped up and were trying to become involved, and more so, and as sad as it sounds, more because of the state money that they wanted, and it was like $300 or whatever they were going to get, and they were
monthly.
Like it's just crazy things that you see, and so myriad of different issues that you go through. But what was it like? You have a unique viewpoint as a kid, seeing other kids coming into the house and seeing what they were going through. How did that affect you?
I don't know if you grew up in the Dallas area or not, but soon after my parents started doing that, that Channel 8 started the Wednesday's Child, and they would feature a foster care every week. And so
Dale Hanson.
It was the Wednesday. So it was
Dale Hanson.
He took. I think John Criswell started it, and then Dale might have taken it over once John started.
I remember that.
Yeah, and it was so it really shined a real positive spotlight on it, and so
there was a huge foundation that started from that whole
and it really made it so it put a positive impression on foster care, and they were doing that, and it was I was growing up, I only child, and all of a sudden I have to share my parents and everything else in the house. It was an adjustment, but just like having another sibling, and it was it was some of the foster children, when they left, you never heard or see from them again. There were a few that got adopted that always kept in touch, and so I mean there's one that we grew up with that she graduated college. She's a teacher in San Antonio now, and awesome. Just having a amazing life. So which is real heartwarming to know. But
for sure.
For foster parents as well as some of the CASA advocates, because there's situations where you might come in and there's 6 kids, right? And so some of these advocates, for whatever reason, I've had all very young, babies. I've had all of mine have been babies. Yeah. But then you talk to some of these advocates, and they've got 6 kids, and 2 of them live in Louisiana, and one of them lives in Decatur, the other one lives in Corsicana, and they've got to make all these visits. I mean, I feel very average and get humbled when I hear what some of these other advocates are doing and how much they're dedicating to this, and it's a very honorable, respectable thing that the volunteers do, and I enjoy doing it. I enjoy telling people about it. But some of these people who are in it every day, sometimes you get retired folks that have more time to dedicate to that. Sometimes you have people who are just in a situation where they can, dedicate a lot of time to that. With me, I make the time for it, but I really, really have a ton of respect for the folks that are able to, give so much to these difficult situations. I have a platform where I can talk about this and try to help recruit, people to be CASA advocates. But when I talk to some of these other advocates in these settings, I mean, you really see some amazing people that are involved in this, and it is truly rewarding to know that your effort paid off, and you made a bad situation a little bit better for a child who otherwise wouldn't have had anyone speaking for him.
That's awesome. That I can't imagine that kind of. I come from a great family, right? I have mom and dad that love me. I mean, we all have our own, hardships growing up, and I went through my own. But to be in foster care, and to know, and then bouncing from a foster care home to,
maybe another foster care home.
Yeah,
sometimes they bounce from home to home to home.
Yeah, to then being potentially adopted by someone you don't even. I mean, I can't imagine what these kids go through, and we're lucky that we have programs like CASA for this.
Yes.
Yep.
So that they can do. I can't imagine if we had, if there's 6 kids in one family, how that goes, because obviously you want to keep them together.
Yeah, the first goal is always to keep them together.
If you can, right.
But it's very hard to find a family that'll keep them all.
Yes.
And like our first placement that we had, he was number 7.
Oh, my Lord.
And the uncle wanted to keep all 7. But at the time when the child was born, he didn't have those resources and he wasn't set up. So we had him for 3 months, and that time the uncle had gotten the beds and gotten everything stable and ready. And so when he went to go back to be with all of his siblings. And the uncle,
so
one of the siblings was, I believe, over 18, so maybe they were like in and out of the house.
Yeah.
But
That's crazy.
he took 6 of them were for sure in the house, like in elementary school or high school, and he took them all and he raised them all.
What a great man,
right?
I
mean, that was a great situation.
Who has
that's not
7
always
spare
the case.
beds ready to go in their
Yes.
house? Of course he's going to need a little bit. All of us would.
And in that situation, I think
we're going to be stacking beds on top of. We're going to have 3 bunk beds in my house to do that.
Yeah. I think there's great organizations out there that are able to help CASA, and we can help as much as we can. But there's so many amazing organizations.
So did you guys have kids at the time? Or?
Yeah. Oh yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So I've got 3. 2 of them are adult out of the house, and I've still got 1 at home.
So where at in you guys' life were you when you started to do the CASA advocation?
So I guess I still had my son was still living at home and finishing high school. When I started, and then now my daughter's heading to her last year of high school. So
what were you at that time? What were you doing for work then?
I was still doing still a compliance officer for a healthcare company.
Okay.
I was working remotely all the time, which gave me a little more flexibility. Now I go to the office a few days a week, 3 or 4 days a week, and it's just all about time management and scheduling and making sure that you're getting responsibilities covered. So people that may think, oh, well, I don't have time to do this. You have more time than you think if you manage it right. Because I'm able to do things for the city as well, and it's I have a little bit of flexibility on my scheduling, and where some people may not. But I'm if you really want to make it work, you can make it work.
Yeah, I think that. From our experience, we have a couple different businesses, and we're always, we're true entrepreneurs. You leave us in a room too long, we'll have another one. So if you don't enjoy what you're doing, and so I'm sure being an advocate's the same thing. There's a lot of reward that comes from it. So most of your kids are out. You got one child at home still,
Yep.
And then you guys start advocating for CASA. And when did you start to kind of get more involved in the organization? And how did it? What was your first? I guess what was your first case? Let's start
So
there.
what is unfortunate is that there's never a shortage of cases.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And so
Yeah.
when one ends, there's always one ready to come. I mean, I don't think I've gone more than a month without a case in the 5.5 years. And so one ends, and then they start looking.
Do they only give you one at a time?
Some have multiple.
Yes.
I've never had more than one at a time.
It kind of depends on what you can handle. Like you kind of spoke to someone being retired.
Right.
So we do have an amazing advocate who's retired, and he has like 5 cases.
Yeah.
But he says it. He's like, I have the most time in the world right now, so why would I not dedicate my time to do this? So you can take more cases if you want. When you're first starting out, we obviously only suggest you take one because it's such a learning experience. But I like to say that when you get sworn in, that's like the last thing you do in training. You stand before the judge, you get sworn in, you're an official CASA advocate, and a lot of the times the case workers are waiting at the courthouse for you to sign the papers so you can get your case.
Wow.
That's what happened to every
And I would
swearing in.
imagine it's no different than, everything you guys are describing, it just sounds like you're more or less having a child, right? Because now you've got to be, like you talked about, you're responsible for their doctor's appointments, checking up on them, how are they doing? Like you've got a lot of stuff you've got to get involved in, and I'm sure you're going to meet them and talk with them, and I'm sure there's a lot that goes
They
into
do a
it.
great job of telling you, hey, these are the things you have to do on a monthly basis. These are the standards. These are all the the checklist of things that you have to do at a minimum, right? And then you can
You can always do more.
be more involved.
Yeah, I'm sure that's not.
Yeah, I'm sure you
Yeah.
have some foster parents that are taking them to doctor's appointments
like-
and stuff like
Oh, yeah,
that.
As a
definitely.
foster parent, we do all that stuff, but the CASA advocate also has, sometimes
checks and
you have to
balances.
make sure that they're
Absolutely.
doing that.
Right.
Sometimes you got to make sure they're going to school.
Yep.
Like sometimes that slips through the cracks. Like you don't realize how much stuff like slips through, and that's why the advocate's there to make sure that the well-being of the child is being taken care of, and that they're happy and they're healthy and they're meeting all their requirements. And if they need some extra help, extra therapies or anything like that, the advocate speaks up for them in the court so that they can get those services.
I've been really fortunate. All of my cases have had satisfactory endings. I'd say happy endings. The very first one I had, the child did end up going back to the parents, but these were young parents, made mistakes, did some stupid stuff, but this was the wake-up call that those young adults needed, and did everything the court asked him to do, did everything their lawyers asked him to do. Every time you'd have a conversation with mom or dad, it was, am I doing everything? Is there anything I'm missing? Because we really want our child back.
That's
And
probably
that's
the best
ideal.
case.
That's what you want.
scenario.
That's
That's
What you want.
Yeah.
And
that's
so-
why we have the services laid out and everything ready to go. Like CPS lays all that out for the bio parents. Like this is everything you have to do. Just like CASA has a checklist, bio parents have a checklist, and it's up to them to do those things.
And when that child went back, I was 100% confident that we'll never see or hear from them again, because they got their act together.
Yeah.
And they did what they needed to do. They are like, this was that wake-up call. That's a happy scenario. We've had a few that have gone. I've had a few that have gone back to the families in different situations. We've had one where the father took off, left the country. Mom was at Denton County, jail, and also on a ICE hold, and was held there. And then so that was one where I did have. So the child was placed with a grandfather in San Antonio. So I did have to go to San Antonio once to go visit the child. Eventually, mom was released to go back to San Antonio, and they were in that unit. So it was interesting. You see, that was my first and only time to go to the Denton County Jail, was to go visit and talk to mom on that one. But it will open your eyes on some things that you think one thing, and then when you see the real what really happens. I had a whole different viewpoint on some things once we got to know Mom and how Mom got to the situation she was in, and it was, that when that case transferred down to Bexar County, and I was no longer on it, I was fairly comfortable that child was, still with aunts and uncles and Mom and Grandpa, and was going to be in a great place. So,
That's great.
but then I've had a few that ended up in adoption as well. And so maybe some of those cases start out, even sadder than others. But to see them with a, family that is eager to take them in and wants to, be with them for the rest of their lives, it's very heartwarming. And definitely, Bethany's case was one of those.
Yeah, let's talk a little about that. Let's talk, first of all, give us your origin story. Grew up, then happily married, then y'all decide. So kind of give us that storyline of how you get involved in CASA up to this point of how you meet Richard.
So I grew up in Ohio, born and raised. My whole family is from there. And I went to school all over, got my master's, moved to Texas and met my husband. And we got married, and we have a older son and a daughter. And I just didn't feel like my family was complete. I was like, I really want a third. And my husband had this feeling that something was going to either happen to the third or something was going to happen to me during the third pregnancy. And his father is adopted. So he was like, I am the product of adoption. Why don't we look into adoption? And so for Mother's Day 2020, so that was right after COVID, or so maybe in COVID.
Yeah.
My present I asked for was to attend a foster care info session. Like, what is foster care? How do you get involved in foster care? How do you get licensed? And that's kind of how it started. And so it took us about a year to get fully licensed. It takes a while. Luckily, everything at that time was virtual. So it was really easy for us because our kids at the time were 4 and 2, so they were young. So we really wanted to keep the birth order, that was super important to us. So we wanted a child younger than our youngest child, and we just finished it up. June 2021 was when we officially got licensed, and we were on the call list to get a placement. And so our first child was from Tarrant County, which they did not have a CASA. So in other counties in Texas, not all cases have CASAs. Where in Denton County, they serve 100% of the cases.
That's cool.
So our full-time staff members will even take on cases to make sure that every case has a CASA. There's no child in Denton County that does not have a CASA.
That's pretty cool.
And
Denton's
so
really good.
And
that's
Denton-
super important to
This is
us
awesome for
because
Denton.
Is Denton the largest county? It's by geographic size, or is it? It's pretty large.
geographic size, I think maybe not by
Okay, but maybe
population.
by
I want to say
population.
Travis County.
Yeah.
Ooh, no, maybe San Antonio.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Down
Well,
south is probably
Harrison,
a lot, but they've got some big,
They got some big.
in Houston, but size-wise, I'm just thinking it's a lot of ground to cover.
It is.
From
It is, yeah. We go from Little Elm
yeah,
to Denton.
Yeah.
It's all over.
or all the way up pretty much to the border. So
Yeah. So then we didn't have a CASA, so I had no idea what a CASA was. And so the little boy went to go live with his uncle, and it was an amazing story, and we were so happy that he was reunified with his family. And we decided to take a break, and that break lasted 2 weeks. And we got a phone call. I got a phone call on November 1st of 2021 for a little girl. And it was just, I don't think no one knew the severity of her case and her injuries. And so CPS just told me kind of the basics of what was going on. Can you come up to the hospital and meet her? I had to kind of coax my husband into it a little bit because we were supposed to be on a break. But I was like, oh, she's a little girl. She really needs a home. And she has a broken leg. Everything's going to be, fine. And so the next day I went up and I met her. And that's when we kind of really, I don't know if I understood it right then either, because I don't know how you guys are. When things are very overwhelming to me, I kind of just become really quiet and kind of take in the surroundings that are going on. And I think the nurses kept asking me, are you okay? And I'm just like, well, this is a lot. They told me she had a broken leg. And I was like, both of her legs are broken, and her arm is broken, and her ribs are broken. It this was a lot more than they let on.
How old was she?
She was 5 weeks old. So she was taken into care Halloween night. But with everything that happened, we didn't get the phone call until November 1st. So it was crazy that they actually waited till like a decent time to call me.
Oh, did they?
They didn't
Not
call.
in the middle of the night?
Yeah, they didn't call at 2 a.m. And so the crazy thing is, like, she's in this like contraption in her. I've never seen a sling so tiny and a broken arm for a 5-week-old. And so they're like, you're gonna take her home today. And I'm just like, what do you mean we're gonna take her home? I'm like, I don't think I'm like capable of taking her home. And they're like, no, you're going to take her home right now. And I was like,
oh, wow.
Okay. So I had to call my husband and be like, oh, she's coming home now. Like we were not prepared to take her home right then. Like we didn't even have diapers or her formula. We didn't have anything ready for her. So we brought her home. And I think, when did we officially meet? Do you remember the date?
It was, I don't remember the date, but it was probably no later than the 15th of November. It was within that next couple of weeks, because she was still in the little carrier. And just think, you've got a child with 2 broken legs and a broken arm. How do you change their diaper without putting them in pain? You know? And how do you change her clothes? And
we couldn't put clothes on her. Remember?
Right.
She couldn't wear clothes.
No,
because of the way she was in this harness, and her arm was like wrapped to her body to keep it mobilized. You couldn't put clothes on her. It was November and it was cold. And
so you're like wrapping her in blankets.
Yeah, I will say you're not supposed to have blankets on the children. Like that's always a thing, as every parent knows. Yeah. But I will say, like, we had her in this little carrier next to the fireplace always to keep her warm, and like this blanket over her, because I'm like, I can't even put clothes on the baby. You can't hold her because it hurts
and
her.
that's got to be the most heart-wrenching thing, is that you want to comfort a child that is in pain, and you can't hold her.
You can't hold her.
Yeah.
So Richard came to my house, and that's when we first met. And he puts in his notes, like, foster mom asked what a CASA was, and I was just like, I had no idea what a CASA was.
Right. So and I didn't know that it wasn't better explained.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
But yeah. So and then we would for the next
2.5 years.
Yeah. It was a long case.
It was a very long case.
One of the things that I would do as part of what it was, they granted visitation once she was healthier.
Okay, so she came home from the hospital on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
What was the circumstance that put her in the hospital?
So the bio parents did take her to the hospital, and the hospital they took her to was like a normal hospital. Didn't have a pediatric unit. So immediately when our daughter was brought into the hospital, the nurses and the doctors knew pretty quickly that this was unintentional trauma, or I think is that what they call it?
They had the obligation because they suspected abuse.
So they have to report it. She was transported to Cook's.
Okay.
And by the time, so she rode in the ambulance by herself to Cook's.
Yeah.
And so I think that's strategic.
Yeah.
I think nurses and doctors, they know what they're doing, and they're very strategic in this. And they're like, you can't ride with her, which you as a parent, you can, but they knew what they were doing, because by the time the bio parents got to the hospital, police had been called, CPS had been called, and they were not allowed to enter the hospital to be with her. Like everything, by the time what is that, like a 30-minute drive?
Yeah, at least.
Everything was handled. Like they were not allowed entered into the hospital. Like, so they knew what they were doing.
What was it both parents or was it one parent? Was there any ever admission?
The parents were still together at the time of removal. They were together for a while after removal, probably until she was 9 months old. And
was there any criminal charges that were brought up against either of them, or was it just?
That's fine. There was criminal charges brought up against the father, because that is who admitted what happened. He admitted what happened in the hospital. And that is like what the nurses and the doctors documented.
Gotcha. So that's all they had to go off of, was that initial statement.
But it's a lot of he said, she said. He was arrested and he bonded out immediately. And unfortunately, charges were dropped 3 days before trial in August 2023.
Due to lack of evidence?
Yeah.
Or as
Which is
the
sad,
Justice Department has...
Because I think that's one of my biggest regrets is the fact that like we didn't push more for that, because she should have got some sort of justice. I mean, she had all those bones broken, and like no one, there's nothing for that.
What did they say the situation was? How do
changing a diaper was one of the reasons.
How do you break 2 legs,
Right.
ribs, and an arm of a 5-week? Like,
Yeah.
So my son's 19 months old.
Yes.
Right, and we brought him home. He was a preemie. He was 5 weeks early, and he was 4 pounds 10 ounces. Right,
Yeah.
this little baby. And at 5 weeks, I mean, I don't know. It's maybe 10 pounds. I don't know.
She was not. She was 6'9".
She was tiny. Yeah.
She was underweight. She hadn't grown that much since birth.
Right, so I can imagine this little baby.
So
this
little.
Big, like I can't imagine like how that even happens.
Right. And then, with her there, right? I mean, it's constant care. I mean, you're with her all the time, and
there's a lot of doctor's
yes.
appointments. It was a lot of care. We were just not prepared.
So you picked them up pretty. I mean, you had her pretty fast. What was the response? The initial response? I understand they're facing criminal charges, or they're initially were. What was there? Did they care? Were they trying to? Is there any implication they were going to try to participate in the process?
I guess I can speak a little bit on this. He met the bio parents. He saw the parent-child visits. He was there more than I was, but I don't think they really understood the severity of it, in my perspective.
No, I think what happened. Obviously they knew the charges were there, right? But they immediately, started recanting the story, and it was all accidental, and but they didn't talk about it too much, and we're not supposed to talk about the criminal stuff with them, while they're there for a visit. Yeah. And so that's when I would interact with them because they would each. For a while they would do visits together when they were still together, and then they would do it separately once they kind of split up. Mm-hmm. And it was so the court gives them instructions on you have to take these courses, you have to do this, you have to do this, drug tests and all this things and they would do some to most of what they were supposed to do.
They were doing just enough.
Yeah, and it's have a stable home environment, be employed,
tricky.
Things like so. Some of those things are, they would do intermittently, but a lot of it was they didn't know the basics of how to take care of a child, and I don't think that's that uncommon. They have to take parenting courses. They have to do how to deal with situations, how to deal with a child that doesn't cry or that doesn't stop crying when you want them to. Mm-hmm. How to deal, it's what is age appropriate, food and toys, and it's just What do you do?
They just didn't know how to take care of a child.
And all of us that have grown up in families, sometimes that's hard for us to invest. Well, how do they not know, right? But some people don't.
Yeah,
they never saw the family unit.
Yeah, that's what I say. There's legitimately people in society that come from such dark places as a norm that they don't ever understand or have those trends. And I didn't understand it until getting into law enforcement, what really existed, and that was a shocker. I mean, you just see it every day, and you just understand, like, oh, okay, like some people just really don't know.
There's a lot more people out there like that than you think there is.
Yeah,
absolutely. There really is.
Yeah. So I do think it was a lack of knowledge, and they did say it was like from a diaper change, or he pulled her out of a swing. He said that's how he broke the arm. He pulled her out of the swing. So I just think like some of the things were
they
just I don't think they realize how fragile. I don't know.
Yeah,
no, that's what
my little brother had a baby this last week. We went and saw the baby in the hospital, and then they went home. I go, can you believe they just like sit you home with this thing? And he's like, dude, we were there for maybe 2 days, and then they just like sit you home. I was like, it's crazy. They just let people take babies home, right?
Yeah.
He was like, and it was this realization. He was like, dude, I can't believe it. Yeah. But some people, I guess, from their upbringing, of their back history of their family, they don't ever have that feeling of what that is. So I think that transcends into like when they have a kid, and they don't know, and which is crazy to think that there's people out there having kids and
That don't know.
that it's just you're like at the hospital. They're like, show you how to swaddle the baby, show you how to change a diaper. Then they're like, here you go,
That's it.
out the door. Like,
Yeah.
good luck. It's a wild thing.
It is.
And I know Bethany may have more statistics, but I know that there's a lot of the cases there when you start peeling back the layers. There's, substance abuse. There really wasn't in this case.
It's not in this case.
Yeah,
No.
as
You would think that's honestly that's
Right.
one of the first things I would think of.
Yeah.
I was like,
No substance abuse.
oh wow, no drugs,
Nope.
No.
alcohol,
Nope.
and oh my gosh,
That's
not to like, but that almost makes it worse.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I always
like
said
you
that,
could,
like, if
yeah.
you were on something,
Like,
you were
I
out of your mind. You
right.
weren't who you were, and
Exactly.
then this happened. And
But to
horrible what had happened.
consciously
But
do
no,
that.
yeah, it was a sober thing. I do think love is hard at that age, and they were a young couple, and I think that sometimes you think that's what love is. And I think that relationship was built off of maybe love hurts. And I think that was how their relationship was. Because I think he was also, he may have been doing that to the bio mom.
Yeah.
And so that's how she attributed that's what love is.
In the hospital, you said CPS was called when they had the baby
Yes, in Oklahoma.
in Oklahoma.
Yes.
So
We didn't find that out. I don't know when we found that out.
Yeah, and it was just concerns of hearing them talk. There were,
Yes.
it was like but
So the
no
nurses-
harm had happened.
nurses filed.
nurses knew right away. Hey, these people don't. We shouldn't be sending them out the door with a baby.
Yeah, but there was no real
Oh my gosh.
you can't send her home because they didn't
they
really
have
then
any
done
reason.
they
Yeah.
had there wasn't a 100% reason. So they were like
Can't punish them
flagged
for
almost.
future crimes.
Right.
Yeah, so they were like flagged, and so then CPS
See,
was
there
supposed
should be
to
some type
scheduled
of
to come.
qualification process
Yeah.
for you to leave the hospital with a baby. Like there should be a test taken or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's
But then she went to her 8-day visit with the pediatrician, and that pediatrician also made a claim against.
Wow.
Oklahoma
That's
is not
crazy.
called CPS. It's called something. Anyway,
Huh.
Oklahoma CPS,
So
they
there's
made a
clearly
claim as
something
well.
that
But
they were seeing.
they ended up leaving Oklahoma after that 8-day visit and coming to live in Texas. So I think they knew they were being watched. And so
So-
then they came to Texas.
So you're doing the home visits with them and the.
Yeah, he
What-
got to go to the
I would do a home visit in the placement with at Bethany's, and then they had to have supervised visits.
So how does that? Let's walk through that process.
Yeah.
So this is a severe situation, right? And I'm sure others aren't, but in this scenario, what is the court allowing them to do with the child?
Well, hold on. Before you say this, I'll say this. Like, the fact that I got her on a Tuesday and on Thursday they called and they were like, "Oh, the parents need a visit," and I was just like, "What do you mean the parents need a visit? Why would we have a
we let
visit?
them within 100 yards
Why
of
are
this
we
child.
doing this? Like, this is a crazy situation." And so I was like, I don't even know how I'm putting her in a car seat right now. Like, you want to drive her to a parent visit?
Oh my
So,
gosh, yeah. I forget that.
foster parents do have the ability to have transportation, so you don't have to have contact with the bio parents, because that sometimes is not. It's not an unsafe situation, but there's a lot of emotions involved.
Yeah, for sure.
And you are taking, as a foster parent, you're taking care of
Especially in
their
that
child.
scenario, I could see why
Yeah.
emotions would be very heightened. So.
Especially so, sometimes transportation is just the easiest thing to do. Therefore, you don't have to see them, and there's no interaction, and they don't see who you are, and there's no interaction. So, they called me, and they went to that was the wildest thing, and it was like a 2-hour visit that time.
Yeah, they that first one was. Then
Yeah,
they
so
went
it was a
back to
Friday.
like an hour every other week or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I would, back to I would be concerned, especially for the safety of my family, right?
Yes.
Right. Like that's something that would be in the back of my
Yeah.
mind, thinking, look what just happened to this child, right?
Yeah.
I'm now accepting them in my home to take care of them, and these people might be fighting to get this child, and may hurt this child, obviously. What could they do to me and my family? Like,
So
just
foster parents aren't known. Like,
Yeah.
we're not on the record. We're not
Right,
on a court document. It'll say she's placed in foster care, but our names will never be on anything.
That's very true, because when you do these court reports, right,
So there's
the names of the fosters are not on there.
Yes.
Where all the rest of our names would be, because we're part of I testify at the hearings, and to, my experiences and so forth. But, but they are protected. Sometimes fosters will attend the hearings. Sometimes they won't.
We were not an attender.
So, but it was, you've got to, my responsibility is to the child. Sometimes in this one, you got to be careful who's the bad guy, who's the good guy, and all this. Sometimes it's easy. Sometimes it's a little. Sometimes the disagreement isn't with the foster. Sometimes it's with the agency, with CPS. Sometimes you think, well, maybe they overstepped. Sometimes you just have to, regardless of what the situation of the case is. I've got my responsibility to make sure that child's needs are being met.
Yeah, you have
on a regular basis. Yeah,
like Taylor mentioned, you have a bunch of humans with all varying degrees of experience trying to do what they think is best in a scenario, and sometimes humans don't do what's right, not on purpose, but because
you get it wrong sometimes.
Make mistakes, and so I'm sure that puts you in a precarious. It can be, which is even more important. That even in my opinion, makes it even more important to have an advocate for the child, because hopefully you step in and the advocate can be the neutral, discerning, like, okay, I think this is the best decision. And not saying the advocates are always probably perfect, but it's just another layer to help protect that child.
So when the child gets an attorney and a CASA, each parent is either pays for or is assigned an attorney to fight for them. And not that we're attorneys, and that's why there's the combination, because these are adults that can take care of themselves. The CASA is kind of outside of the legal part of the case. The CASA is, tasked with making sure that this child's needs are met, whatever that is, medical, dental. You remember having to take her to a dental appointment when she didn't have any teeth.
Under 6 months, they have to go.
They have to go once. Yes, they have to go to a dental appointment with teeth. But those things like that, emotion. Make sure her emotional development, her physical development, her and if they're older, their educational development.
Yes,
those are the things that the CASA would step in and just make sure that's getting done. So a lot of times you are kind of not partnering with, but in frequent communications with the placement, whether it's foster or kinship, just to help make sure. And when they're not, you try to find ways to make sure. Like I would talk to the doctors, just to get a report from that, just to make sure. Although some of those doctors don't. Cooks doesn't like to give stuff to CASA, but we would do that. But a lot of that sometimes not in your case, but in others, I would have monthly discussions with the folks in the daycare. They were in a placement where they had to go to daycare during the day. I would have a monthly conversation with the daycare just to make sure that development, because you never know what the situation that happened before the placement, or even being away from your parents in a placement, is doing to a child. And you've got to make sure that they're emotionally all right.
Right. So you go to the hospital, you get this baby home, and then that's a Tuesday. On Thursday,
we get the call saying that
biological parents have to get a visit.
Yeah, they have to. It's like state. It's like
mandated.
State mandated. They have to have a visit, which is crazy.
So they get transportation for that. You're there for that visit.
Right.
And y'all met?
No.
And y'all hadn't met?
None at that time. So, they supervised visits will happen. The locations have changed, but back then it was at the CPS office in Denton, and they have these rooms where they have the supervised visitation, and there's a tiny room in between two other rooms where there's one-way glass and all that stuff. I don't think it's like that anymore. I think it's just a regular window, but we could observe and hear what was going on, see what was going on without physically being in the room with them. And so, we take notes, whoever the transportation person was at the time, they'd come get them. And, but someone from CASA, someone from CPS at the time.
Attorneys
and
can
someone
come.
just to come
Anyone
and
can
watch
come
those
and like
visits.
watch the visits,
Right.
but the
Right.
visits with our daughter and the bio parents were interesting.
And so so obviously they're always supervised. Again, back to what we were talking about just not knowing. There were things that they just didn't know, and they'd have to ask. They'd have to ask, certain things about, how to not necessarily how to wipe a nose or something like that, but it's just things that are kind of common sense to us. They just didn't know how to do. Like, they'd change a diaper. This is when she was physically able to, do that without being in pain or whatever. You've got a 19-month-old, right? You wrap that diaper up, put it in a bag or whatever. They just take it right off, put it right in the trash. They just did, things that you don't do that,
Not unless you're in your house to
Right.
Yeah.
holy,
Right.
Yeah.
and it just kind of goes to show, there were examples they'd they wouldn't really know how to
Feeder.
or what to bring for food even, and so they just didn't know. And you think there's tons of people out there that are having kids that don't know what they're doing. Of course stuff like this happens, unfortunately.
And I think it's important. And this is no justification for what occurred, but
Yeah.
there's it's always the argument of nature versus nurture, right? We're in that, and whether your opinion on it is not, if someone isn't taught something, or they're taught something that's false and they're raised that way, or in an environment and they see it, I mean, they're just not going to know what they're supposed to do. And so it's crazy to think that you wouldn't know how to take care of a child. But I would imagine that the family they came from was either one, fractured, or just very little emotional support that came from the home. And there's not a lot. And like I said, it's not a justification, but
No.
it it is possible to be raised in a way that you don't have those skills.
And I think there's sometimes they're intellectually where they can pick that up,
Correct.
right? They figure that out.
Absolutely.
Sometimes they don't.
Like your first case, like
Yeah.
you talked about, where the young
Oh.
kids, and they did everything they needed
Yep.
to do
Yes.
to get that kid back.
Like
And
they
you-
knew they did wrong.
they
In this
knew.
case,
They had the intellectual
don't-
capacity
yeah.
to know how to fix it,
Right.
to figure it out.
Yeah.
And
These ones are
some
questionable.
don't, right?
So after the first visit,
Mm-hmm.
What happens next? What's the process? Like, I'm sure the transportation brings the child back to
Yeah.
you, of course. And then kind of walk us through what happens next with you. Like, you get her home, you get her back from the visit, kind of what's
Yeah.
going through your mind with what's just happened. Like, are you still...
Because obviously we know she's your daughter now, so we know you
Yeah.
made the decision to adopt.
Yes.
Right? So you're a foster parent. You don't know what CASA is.
Yeah.
So
I think it's hard, like when she comes back from the first visit, and we were super emotionally attached to our first placement. And I think you learn that as a foster parent, that being attached is the point in my eyes.
and is that why y'all decided to take a break for a little while? Because
Yeah,
y'all
we were,
got
we
so
were a little
attached.
sad.
Yeah,
But
okay,
that's
gotcha.
okay. Like, being attached to a child and helping them in any way, even though that case was only for 3 months and we didn't know how long our daughter was going to be with us, be attached. Love that child. Care for that child. Do whatever you can for that child, because we could. So we are attached for a little bit.
That might be the first love that child's feeling.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I don't understand why you wouldn't do it. Okay, so we're sad when they go back, but I'm an adult. I can handle that sadness. So, I think when she came back from that first visit, it was really hard taking care of her, and I just don't think anyone understood. Like, she couldn't wear clothes. She had medicine around the clock.
Yeah. And
She had
How long did it take
special-
before she slept through the night?
I was going to
Oh,
say, babies...
gosh.
It was a long time with her.
So
Babies
long.
cry anyways
Mm-hmm.
when they're just normal babies and have no broken
Right.
bones and,
Right.
and pain associated with movement. I can imagine it was just, I could only
We couldn't
imagine.
give her a bath.
Yeah.
You couldn't
'Cause
give
of
her a bath. And so I think that, there was a lot of times at 3 and 4 in the morning when we looked at each other, my husband and I, and we were just like, yeah, we are not trained for this. We are not capable of this. We were not prepared for this.
Yeah, I can imagine. Oh my gosh.
But
sleep
we were
deprivation.
not. But is it at the same time that you're caring for this baby and around the clock medication and going to the doctor's visits and doing the parent visits and doing all this stuff, I mean, you're falling in love with her. Like,
Yeah.
it's easy to fall in love with her. I mean, she's adorable.
and it's super easy to get frustrated because with the process, right? Because part of that process is, as Bethany mentioned earlier, the first goal is to find a family unit to have them. And so they have to go through the process of vetting family members who could potentially be placements. Even though they're in foster care now, if they find a viable family member who's willing to take them in, they could
take
go.
precedent.
Immediately.
Right,
Yeah.
they could go. So they're, Bethany, they're putting all this effort and all of this, pouring their hearts out 24 hours a day for this child. And then there's the possibility that there could be a relative that is in a situation where they could all of a sudden just, okay, well, it's time for her to go over here now.
Yeah.
And so obviously that didn't happen in this case, but you don't know that. So it's sometimes it's a little emotional roller coaster.
It's
of
an
are they gonna,
uncertainty.
And so again, I've been fortunate enough that the cases I've worked on have all been happy endings like this one. But that doesn't mean they're smooth sailing either, because there is that uncertainty. There's this, are they going to come do that? But as we got to know her daughter and she recovered and started to be able to, sit up and then crawl and then, feed herself and things, and then you start to see the personality. And how she would interact with the with the other two in the home. You're like, oh, look at she's becoming her own little person. Right. And this was a long case, so we got to see that, and so it was really neat as you think where this started. Little baby couldn't move, arm strapped to her, couldn't. To running around the house and
probably smiling and laughing.
Yeah.
Just being a normal kid.
Yep.
Yeah.
So at what point, are you like, okay, we're adopting? You had to make that decision at some point, and how did that go? Did you express that to Richard first? Is that how did you?
It's an interesting CASA relationship when the foster parents want to adopt. So in the state of Texas, bio parents have 1 year to try to reunify with the child, and as foster parents, you cannot petition for adoption until the child has been within your care for 1 year. Okay. So you pretty much can't do anything for a year, and so at any point, that baby could be 11 months old. A family member could step in and that baby could be gone. Did any family members in this case did y'all petition and talk to other family members, and there just wasn't? They vetted, and for various reasons, it wasn't recommended. The great grandma was the strongest. Yeah. At 9 months old, the great grandma came forward, and that, I still remember where I was, what I was doing, and I was like, "What do you mean she's come forward? Where has she been?" And now at 9 months. I think we were still in occupational therapy at the time because she was still having issues with mobility. Mm-hmm. But I was like, we have done all of this work. What do you mean we're 9 months? And so I think around that time is when we were like, oh no, we're going to intervene. We're adopting. Yeah, you let it be known that when the time was when the time was up that would be happening. We knew that was going to happen. But again, we can't do anything. Right.
Yeah,
we can't.
You can't influence and try to. I totally.
He can't influence the foster parents. He can't influence the bio parents. He's there. Yeah. So we couldn't. Did you meet with the great grandmother? Not until after adoption. I never met her until after adoption.
So what happened? So she came forward. What happened with that process?
And she was. So when any family member comes forward, or when they're being vetted, they have to go through a home study, just like foster parents go through a home study. They have to make sure that they have a safe home. They have, all this stuff. And so I'm not 100% sure what the reason was, but that did not work out. Yeah. There was, it was not recommended that be a viable placement.
So and that's why there's a vetting process, right? So
yes.
It did what it's supposed to do.
And so then we hired a lawyer. So November 2nd is technically the date she came home with us. So November 2nd is when we could intervene. in the state of Texas. So we hired a lawyer in October, and we basically just waited until that date. But when that date happens, now our names are known. Yeah, so we are no longer just the foster parents. We are active parties in the case, I think is how you would say
and
it.
then in some of these cases, so when it's decided, they go through the process. It's like the agency or the DA's office or whoever is not comfortable, or the parents are not at a point where they have done what they needed to do and they will then start to move towards either a trial where the trial would be for a termination of rights. Mm-hmm. Now, before that, almost every judge in the county will have all the parties go to mediation before that. And so that's what ended up happening in this case. And it was mediation to discuss whether the parents would relinquish their rights
so the parents
versus
are
going to trial
separated.
to have them terminated.
Yeah, the parents are separated this time.
So it's two different.
It's two different
lawyers,
it would have been two different trials, two different everything.
Yeah.
So the mom did relinquish in December of 2021. She relinquished on her own, right before a court hearing.
21 or 22?
21.
Okay.
No, 22.
Yep.
You're right. You're 20. So sorry. In December of 2022, she relinquished on her own free will. And so then it was just left with the father that we had to fight. And that was crazy. So we were scheduled for trial in April. And termination trial is a little family trial and family court is a little different than criminal in the sense of like it's a jury trial, but not all the jurors have to agree in family in order to get a decision done. So where it has to be unanimous in criminal, it's not the same in family. So that's a risk that we were super nervous and super risky with, even though the evidence was there against him and he was pending criminal charges for what had been done to her. I just didn't want to take that risk of like, what happens if someone on that juror side with him? And then that was it. Then she would go back to him. And at this point, you have to realize that she is a year and a half and she hasn't been with him for more than an hour a week at most since she was 5 weeks old. So she has like no relationship. She does no concept of who he is. So we did our goodbye visit with the mom and then we asked to do mediation. And mediation is kind of what it sounds like. We were in this office building. And the crazy thing is, I still find this very crazy, is that you're in this office building and we're in one room with our attorney. He's in one room with his attorney and CPS, CASA, and everyone else is in one room. Yeah. And I'm like, we could like run into each other in the hallway, like we could just like, oh, I have to go to the bathroom and like, there's Bio Dad.
But yeah, I don't even know if I don't think I saw you that day, but yeah, we were both there. But
yeah.
So I mean, the outcome during the mediation, I can't imagine the court and the mediation. I'm curious to know is there any sort of quasi like middle ground where they're giving up their rights but they still can like call and talk to the child? That's like, is it ever gets agreed upon, or is it pretty much like I'm trying to understand what's being mediated. Is there levels of
sometimes
an agreement?
Sometimes mediation goes great and you can mediate a situation. Our mediation was literally all day. All day we were there. Like we went back and forth so much. So they kind of start off where the mediator meets with you in the room and they go, hey, what's your side? What would you like your outcome to be as the bio parents or bio parent in our case? Then they're just like, okay. Then they go to the person that's fighting the other side and they're like, what's your outcome? What would you want? And then the mediator's job is just to figure out how we can reach an agreement. Sometimes there's no agreement ever met. Yeah. Because parents won't relinquish.
Yeah, and we talk about mediation sometimes. I'm like, in my experience, mediation is not very many times you see it succeed. But
I don't know. Does it always succeed?
Not necessarily in your case, but in court and law enforcement, mediation would happen for civil trials all the time. I just never saw much of it ever happen in mediation. But so there could be some sort of agreement that's met where, so you guys are just kind of making up I shouldn't say making up, but you're coming up with what you want ideally, which is whether that's from yeah, I'm okay with him seeing him twice a year or once every year or once a week or whatever that is. You guys come up with that agreement, and if you guys agree to it, that's what's held up by the court.
Yeah, so the attorneys
be
are there.
anything.
Like, everyone is
Okay.
legally there, and so it's it's held on a like next to the courthouse. So
Yeah.
it's you're still, everything's monitored and everything, but it's I think things were said at our mediation that were wild that he wanted. I think he wanted like
Oh, I'm sure they probably can request money too.
oh no, he didn't ever request money.
Okay.
He requested like he wanted like it was like a divorce. Like he wanted 50-50 custody.
Okay.
And we were just like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? You haven't even like raised her, or like
Gotcha.
you see her for one
That's
hour.
an option.
I mean, like
that's what I was trying to
he
figure
Yeah,
out.
like,
that's what he proposed, and we were just like,
But let's say
no.
you guys had
we
agreed.
just came back with a no.
But if you guys had agreed to that, the courts would have been okay with that and allowed that.
Not necessarily.
I don't know if you
That's
guys
where-
would
that's
have.
where
I don't
I-
know if
that's why-
CASA,
we would have objected.
Okay,
Yeah.
Certainly.
that's where
Yeah.
I was trying to get at.
Yeah, like what? Because
Yeah.
you can't have like.
Because this guy.
There's no book that's written or rules on this. Like,
No,
right?
yeah.
Like,
it's
so
whatever
like
you're comfortable with. But at some point, the state
have
and CASA and CPS
someone being unreasonable, say
Yeah.
let's have 50-50 custody. Like, we're gonna switch weekends back and forth.
yeah,
What?
no, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, the mediator would come in to our room and say, okay, well this is the discussion that's going on. This is if we're able to get to this point,
Yeah.
would you guys be all right with that? And so
Because they also have to sign off on it.
Yeah.
And so
That's even harder,
we
too, like-
we did meet. We met an agreement that day.
it was a long day.
Long day. He literally. So no one wants to go to trial. No one wants to go to trial. Denton County doesn't want to go to trial. The lawyers don't want to go to trial. It's so much prep work. It's so much time. It's so much money. We didn't want to go to trial because, we were paying for the attorney out of our pocket. Like the bio mom and bio dad had court appointed attorneys where this was all of us. So we wanted to mediate to avoid trial because it was going to be a 5-day jury trial. And we did agree that he could see her twice a year in a supervised setting. There are some amazing places out there that have off-duty police officers that monitor the visits. A lot of them are done for custody disputes and stuff like that. And so there's all sorts of organizations in Louisville and Flower Mound that have these facilities, or they can have them at parks where they are just there to monitor the visits.
Gotcha.
For the person that has to have a supervised visit. So he relinquished his rights that day, and then that's it. Like once your rights are relinquished, there's no turning back. But he does get to see her twice a year, which is a whole another
Sure, it's
thing.
hard too.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very hard.
Yeah.
So once that mediation was done, then the courts have shifts to their petition for adoption.
Yes.
Right. And so, at that point, CASA is minimally involved, but just because the parents, the case is over, and it's just moving on to where you get an adoption worker to
We
deal
got a
with,
new worker. Yeah.
and so who finishes that case off. But just because there's things like that, I wouldn't want anyone to not think about becoming a CASA advocate, just because they may have to go sit through a mediation one day. It's
No,
I've had some that are
more-
on Zoom. I've had some that are in person
Some
all
last
day.
like an hour. Some are
Right.
just like the parents are like, we will not ever
It's
come to
not-
an agreement,
yeah.
and then they're just like,
I
okay,
hope
well,
that
goodbye.
people hear your experience, not to scare them, but I hope that they look at the end result is that a child was adopted and taken from a terrible situation and put into a loving home. And that's the outcome, regardless of the extreme, whatever process it took to get to it.
Yeah.
That outcome is what we're after, right? That's the important part.
And CASA, as Bethany knows, since it was just a weird circumstance that all of a sudden Bethany applies for a job at CASA and gets it, and so we normally would not have kept in touch or know what was going on, but now that she works there, but CASA does a great job because you've been sitting there of training you and preparing you for that, and it's not just there's way more preparation, like we said earlier, to be a CASA than there is to be a parent at the hospital. you get months of training on exactly what to expect and what you may go through through the training instead of just having, okay, you want to be a CASA, here's your first case. So
Yeah, a lot of training.
Yeah, they are. They're very good about preparing you for what you might encounter, and you have a casework supervisor who's there with you every step of the way to guide you and step in if there's something you don't know what to do or how to do. So again, this is me, promoting people to try to get more,
absolutely,
especially males.
He's our best advocate and also
what
best
would
promoter.
I mean, because I think there's probably a 4-to-1, 5-to-1 ratio of female
men?
to men.
Yes.
And so that's why they've got, that's why they run radio spots on the ticket. They're trying to appeal to more men to become involved.
Gotcha.
That's I can see how having, of course, women, they're nurturers and they want this, and you I mean, that's kind of where you stepped in on this, and went to the hospital, right? And and you get this call to go to a hospital, and then you're like, I'm leaving with this child.
Oh, that was crazy.
Yeah,
crazy.
Well, and I mentioned in my personal case, I've always had babies, but if you think about, you could have a 12, 13-year-old boy who may be comfortable talking to, who maybe has not had a great male role model. And you could be the person that kind of sets that person on a right track,
right, for sure.
Because you can have direct conversations with that kid and teach them the stuff. We talked about stuff you just don't know. You could be that person that gets them to know some of these things, just common sense things, because and they may be more comfortable talking to a guy than a woman about certain things when you're preteen, teenager, things like that. So male advocates really can serve a really good purpose.
That's awesome.
So y'all move through the mediation, and he relinquishes.
Yes.
And so from that day forward, then you have now adoption, CPS. Now y'all are moved towards adoption.
Yes, we're moved to the adoption side of CPS, and I don't know. I am never 100% sure what really happened, but I think that we kind of just slipped through the cracks, and not in the bad way. I think that she was happy. She was healthy. We were taking care of her. We were not a pressing case or a pressing situation where I think we were kind of just going about our business. Like, they would come and do the visits and the checks, and we would meet with Richard, and we were just kind of like, when are we going to adopt her? Yeah. And so it took another year for mediation to adopt her.
Well, it was a year, because we thought it was going to happen right around the end of the year.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I don't know what the delays were, but then it was April, right? Or
what's the process for adoption? I know that you got legal paperwork, and the state's got to get involved, and what is occurring that I guess could hold up something like that?
But I imagine you probably skipped the line a little bit, because you're a CASA advocate, or you're a foster
parent.
A foster parent. So you've already been checked out by the state, and you've already gone through the classes and everything.
No one's really quite sure what happened in our situation. Gotcha. We did all the paperwork. You're in adoption. You kind of have to you have to fill out the adoption paperwork. But CPS kind of does all that stuff with you, not necessarily for you, but they do. This is the form that you need to fill out. Okay, this is what you need to submit. Okay, I'm trying to think anything else like we had to officially do. But our house had already been vetted.
Right. We
had the fire extinguisher checked. We had the smoke detectors checked. We had all that stuff done. So our house, everything was cleared. So it did take a long time, and we did get a call at the end of March of 2024, and they were just like, you have to adopt her in April. Like, it has to happen. And so we picked a date in April, and it was April 24th, 2024, and then we officially adopted her. So I had to call my family. They literally flew out for 24 hours because that's all they could do. And we hired a photographer who was amazing, who did the services for free because it was an adoption. Wow. She was also she is a foster mom, and so she knows the meaning behind that. Because one of the other things I regretted was...
Who's the photographer?
Haley Montgomery.
All right, well...
Yes, shout out Haley Montgomery. She took the photos. She's a foster mom, and she has a foster child and a child of her own. And, when you have a baby... you take newborn photos, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, we didn't get that with her. And so I always really regretted that because I didn't know if I really wanted to photograph. Like, I have those photos on my phone, but it's nothing I really show to a lot of people because it's a little jarring to see how she was when she first came into care. And sometimes you don't always want to remember that time because it was so hard, and we got through it, and we have her, and she's amazing. And so the photographer was super important to us to have because we wanted to make sure we could remember this special occasion. And my family was there, and Richard was there, and the attorneys were there. Everyone was there.
And you didn't have to invite us, right? I mean,
we're
not.
To, but...
No. I really appreciated that because, a lot of times when a case ends, you don't get that closure, right? You don't. It's just done. Okay, you never talk to them again, right? But the fact that everybody was invited to go to the adoption ceremony, and I hadn't been to one since, I guess my youngest sister was adopted, so it had been, since like the 80s, since I'd actually been to an adoption hearing. But while I was in hearings for other things, I would see other adoption hearings, and I was like, that would be really cool to, I wonder if the CASA got invited to that.
Yeah.
And so I did, and I appreciated it, and saw the pictures, but it really was it was a little walking away from that when I left, walking to my car in the parking lot, I realized I'm never going to see them again. Well, then this turned out where I did, but that's another thing with the CASA. It's like, and sometimes you're like, just like you were. Maybe sometimes you need a break after something like that, or sometimes like I got to get right back into another case, so I don't have to think about this kid that I've seen for 2 years that I'm never going to see again. So
it's gonna make me cry.
But it was definitely that the best way that this could have ended from where it started. I think it's probably the biggest gamut from where it started to where it ended, and how. The little girl is fantastic, and how she recovered to being in a great home situation where siblings love her, parents love her. I mean, it's going to be it's going to be the way you would hope every one of your cases ends. That's awesome.
Which is crazy to think that like Richard, and I didn't know this until I started CASA, that once a case is closed. Even though ours was a happy ending and a joyous, and we had a great relationship with our CASA, why would we not continue that relationship with our CASA? Sometimes when these cases happen and reunification happens, or maybe the kinship adopts the child, that period of time that the child was in care was the worst time in that family's life. And they don't necessarily want to remember that time. Not saying that the CASA didn't do an amazing job, or not saying that everyone didn't rally around them and support them, but gosh, like, do I really want to see that person that was there for my child when they were in care? Like, I don't know if I want to remember that time.
Yeah, like the young parents that you talked about that had to do all the classes, and they did everything they needed to do to get their child back. But, 10 years later, those are different humans than 10 years before. And having to revisit that mistake, essentially, that they made in their life, I can see why they would not want to.
Yeah, you don't want to keep going back.
Or be reminded that, hey, someone had to take care of my child for me while I was doing these steps to be able to get my child back. They don't, I can see why. And it's got to be tough, too, for
for a CASA is
or
hard.
the foster person that, basically took care of this child for, whatever time period it was for that the biological parents to get that child back. Yeah, that's going to be tough for everyone involved. And maybe the kid too, like that.
Well, because how are you going to explain that to there's this, in Richard's case, this is Richard, and he was your CASA advocate when you were in foster care, and then I was in foster care.
Right.
Why was I in foster care?
Oh
What happened?
Gosh, yeah.
It just opens sometimes, and so that's sometimes not a best situation. So. Now that they're not appreciative and they are happy with everything that happened, but they don't want to necessarily remember that time. So therefore, there is no, in our first case with the little boy that we were placed with, that uncle didn't want to remember that time where his nieces and nephews had not met their youngest sibling because he was taken straight from the NICU into someone else's home. And there was 3 months where they had no idea who he was, what he looked like. And I think the caseworker told me that, the CPS caseworker told me that. He said, those siblings are so excited to meet him for the first time. And it really just like broke my heart because I was like, oh my gosh, they've never met him. They've never held him. They don't know what he looks like, how he has the best hair that you'll ever imagine. And him and my daughter are only a month apart. And I always think about that because I wonder what he looks like. Because he would be, he's 4.5. And I wonder what he looks like. And I wonder what, he's doing and how is his siblings and how is his home. And I hope everything's great and happy, but that's not my place. Right. And he, his uncle
did a great job.
His uncle did an amazing job. And we are so happy and fortunate. And we live in an amazing community where I live that, when that call did happen and that child was going back to his uncle, I just had to put it out on our Facebook page, like, hey, this is what's going on. And within a day, I had closed up till a year.
You put that on the Harvest page.
Yep.
I remember that.
Yes, and I said,
I remember it too.
and
actually.
I had closed up for him for a year. I had pack and plays, carriers, strollers, formula, food, everything I could possibly give to this child because why would you not help him? He's taking care of 6 kids. If I can help ease the burden for a little bit, of course, let's do it.
Shout out Harvest Facebook page.
Yeah, shout out. Yes, there is
I'm an admin on that page now.
Yes.
So there's some good stuff.
There is some good stuff
that comes from that page.
That comes from the Harvest Facebook page and the community that rallied around.
We have such a great neighborhood, such a great community for stuff like that.
And, so that was a great situation. It was a great outcome. And then obviously in our daughter's situation, I think we knew pretty early on that this was not a case that we wanted to see reunified because of her injuries and of the lack of and there was no accountability ever for what happened to her. I remember the 6-month, what is it called? The 6-month,
the hearing?
Yeah, the 6-month hearing.
Not the permanency hearing,
it's called something.
Yeah.
I forget. Anyway, the 6-month hearing we went to. That was the first hearing we went to. And I remember at that time, the judge will always ask, why is your child in care? Why was your child removed from you? Because if a parent can't answer that simple question, and if a parent can't say, hey, this is what happened.
They should literally call it the admonishment.
Yeah.
Part of the
because you should be able to say, like, you should.
We messed up and this is what happened.
Right.
And you should own up to it. Because I think it
better.
Means so much when you can own up to what you did. Like, hey, I made a mistake and I was wrong in that situation.
That's
and
how you get better.
Yes, exactly. And they could not answer why she was removed from their care. The dad said some weird answer about she got hurt. Didn't say how she got hurt. She got hurt and she was taken from us. And not our attorney, our daughter's attorney was like, I've seen car crash victims with less injuries than her. And she was like, that wasn't just she got hurt. And so I think it was everyone in this case and our daughter's case was just super supportive from the get-go. I think we were all just wanting the best for her, regardless of the situation, like regardless of us taking care of her. I think, obviously it was pretty known that we wanted her and she was meant to be with us. And everyone just supported her. Everyone went to the court cases. He went to parent-child visits. He went to everything that he could, and all the lawyers were on the same page. And in our case, it worked out, I would say great, because she's with us.
Yeah. Right. It's the best
and she's amazing. And now she's 4.5. And, I was looking for full-time work, and CASA opened up a job, and I said, ooh, I think this would be perfect.
Well, yeah, I got a text message from you that said that you were applying for a position at CASA or something like that. And then I didn't really hear anything back. I was like, hey, good luck. Let me know if there's anything I can do. I didn't hear anything back. And then a couple months later, some email comes out to all the advocates. And it's from Bethany. I thought, well, I guess she got hired.
I think it's exactly what he texted me. He's like, you got hired. And
That's awesome.
So what do you do for CASA now?
So I'm the volunteer recruiter.
Okay.
So it's a new position that they created, and they just needed help getting advocates. So we're really struggling. So in 2025, there were 642 children in care, and there was only 204 advocates.
Oh, wow.
So we really need more people to represent the children. And so I was hired. This is a new role, and I am just supposed to go out there and spread the word of CASA, get more advocates, get more volunteers. If you know someone that wants to be a volunteer, if you know somewhere I can speak or share the information about CASA, like that's my job.
So I was in a conversation Tuesday night after the meeting, and I found out. So I was talking to someone, and it was the topic of
Is Tuesday
the kids
a CASA
came up.
meeting?
No, this was
sorry.
after my city council meeting.
Oh, okay. No big deal, Bayer.
So after city council, I was talking to someone, and someone told me that they are also a CASA, but they are paused, right? Or they're a yellow. I don't know what the category.
Paused. Yeah, yellow.
Right. And so I didn't know if that's something where I don't know how often the contacts are with those yellow status folks to get them back to available to take a case. I don't know if that's
green,
something.
I
Right.
assume.
I would think so. Yeah. But this was also somebody that I've known in town for years. I had no idea they were a CASA at one point. I don't know how long the yellow has been there.
Yeah.
But hopefully talking about tonight maybe gets them rethinking.
It's interesting. I had no idea what a CASA was until we got connected, which is funny how we got connected and we live half a mile from each other in the same neighborhood. We're a few streets away, right? But we got connected. Matt was doing stuff with you.
Yes,
and
from Message Masters. Great.
Yeah, and Matt's awesome.
Yes.
And he's done a lot of videography stuff for ABA, Argyle Business Association, and knows me and knows the podcast and knows Kyle, and was like, hey, you need to go on here. So I have this message from Matt, and I haven't even looked at it yet, and it popped up on Messenger of him connecting us, and see, we have mutual friends, the harvest, all that stuff. But I'm leaving jiu-jitsu, and I have text messages from Tammy.
Good old Tammy.
And I'm like, I hope it's not too late. Like, give me a call. It's something exciting.
Yeah.
A typical Tammy, like, text, like, call me. I have something exciting to talk to you about. And I'm like, I love talking to Tammy. Tammy's one of my favorite people in the world.
Yes.
Big part of who I was in my previous career came from, her banging some common sense into my head,
Yeah.
And I absolutely love her, but she has a military background. So, like, she could sit down and give it to you straight.
Yeah.
But also, like, you want to hug her while she's doing it. Because
she's so sweet.
The way that she goes about stuff, it's like she could kick you in the ass, but also you want to, like, thank her at the same time while she's doing it. And she's so good at it. So I called Tammy, and she's like, hey, I have someone that you need to meet. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, by the way, how's life? Like, we had talked in a couple years. And her son-in-law was my mentor. He was the general manager that promoted me into some of the positions that I later excelled at, some of the awards that I have that's here on the wall. But it was great to hear from her that she's now an advocate.
She is one of our newest.
And she's one of our newest. So that's really cool. But I didn't know anything about CASA, and now we'll be able to share this interview in the Harvest Facebook page, because I'm sure our community and like Pecan Square, some of the families that we have would definitely be interested in being an advocate for some of these kids, knowing that there's these cases out there, like being in Denton.
People are always like, I can't be a foster parent. I can't be a foster parent. Like, it is a lot to be a foster parent, because that child is coming into your home. Yeah. You are raising that child. And so I do feel like a lot of people that have the interest or the heart for foster care, or just caring for these children that are in foster care, this is a great way to be a part of it.
And maybe they don't have the resources, because I'm sure, like, it's probably, it's like being a parent. You're taking on some expenses.
Oh,
right?
For sure.
In foster care, like, you had to go out, and you said you didn't have formula, you didn't have diapers.
No.
Car seat, all this stuff, especially for a child that has broken limbs, right? So
you have to go to Fort Worth for your formula too.
Yeah,
it
so
was special.
She was on prescription formula.
Oh my gosh!
So my husband had to go to
and that was
either Addison or Fort Worth.
Addison.
That was 2021. Was the
formula shortage happened?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
There was a shortage.
Right. Yeah.
So I remember
So
very
this
well.
is like,
that and toilet paper.
Yep.
Yeah. So a funny story is, I got invited to the Justin Bieber concert, and I was like, I have to go to this concert. And there was a formula shortage, and I was so nervous because
we couldn't get her formula. They were limiting how many cans you could get. And so we had met our limit, and she had gone through it. And, I think that was a huge stress in parent-child visits because I had to provide them with a bottle, and they would waste that bottle because they couldn't feed her. And I'm just like, do you know how much that is? Do you know how much that formula is that you just wasted? And then we couldn't get it back because it's only good for so long.
Yep.
And so I remember my husband, we drove to 35 Walgreens and CVS's all over the area trying to find anything sort of like comparable to her prescription. And we found, I think Nutramigen was like the closest to it. I think that's what it was called. I don't know. Anyway. And I was so nervous to leave her. And I remember getting the text message from my husband of the empty bottle, like while I was at the concert. And I was just like, because I was like, I'm not gonna go. I'm not gonna go.
I thought you were gonna tell me you traded Bieber tickets for formula. There's people out there willing and dealing formula for Bieber tickets.
I mean,
you probably would have.
35 Walgreens and CVS's, all up 35. We were just stopping and being like, what do you have? But no one had anything.
Yeah, I remember.
It was just gone.
On Facebook or even on the Harvest community page, people were posting like, "Hey, I went here today. They had this here." Like,
I
get it. Like, hey, it's over here. Or you can get it here. I just remember like, oh man, and both me and my wife, because both of our kids had to have formula, and so we were just like, man, I'm glad we're not having to. We didn't have, our kids were not young enough. We had to worry about formula at the time, but I just remember seeing all over how bad it was.
Yeah, so that was crazy. The formula shortage. Oh gosh.
Yeah, I'm sure.
See, things you forget.
Yeah,
you kind of forget it because you don't want to remember it. You're just like, let's not go back to that time.
Yeah, during COVID, they stopped going to school and stuff.
Yeah.
And we were schooling from, my wife quit her job, and that's what she did.
No, we now teach school.
She took like a remote position that was like 2 days a week, I think, and just took care of Kennedy full time. Like that's what we were going to do. What we had to do, and it's just it's wild to think back.
But there are expenses that come with it, and that was an expense.
Yeah. So back to that point is, so if someone wants, say they grew up in the system and, or they've had a heart for that, but they don't necessarily have the resources to take on that expense of taking care of a child and doing that stuff, they can be a CASA.
Absolutely.
Oh, for sure.
And they can still have that same effect of, helping a child out and being, that advocate for that child, which in your situation, you've seen, great situations. Also seeing a child that has a loving family now because of it, and now you work at CASA.
How many cases have you? I don't know exactly, but approximately how many cases have you ever seen now? And how long have you been doing it?
It's just 5.
Oh, okay.
But I've had like the case that I'm on that's wrapping up here pretty soon. That one is another one that's 18 months.
So these cases aren't 6 months, 2 months.
Some can be. I've had a couple. The shortest case I had was probably a month because at the first hearing, they just decided that the department. I'm sorry, the DA's office decided that the child shouldn't have been removed.
Yeah, sometimes there's not enough proof. That the removal was, there was no cause for the removal, so the child went back. So we do have cases like that.
I will say the state, a couple sessions ago, changed the requirements or basically the cause for removal. And so there were less removals because there's a greater burden. There's more things that have to happen to take place. Not just you think something might happen or it looks like something could happen. This is a example. You can know that both mom and dad are dealing drugs, but if no actual harm has happened to that kid, they don't remove. Yeah. They weren't arrested. So but we're used to, they had a little more leeway on that. It's just stricter standards on what constitutes grounds for removal. But as there was
642 children.
642 in 2025. Yeah. In Denton County. So even with they're still happening. Yeah. At a greater pace than we have advocates to take the cases.
And 4 kids were removed from Argyle. So I feel like we think we're in this bubble of this doesn't happen and no one's affected by it. But 17 kids were removed from the colony last year. 4 kids were removed from Argyle. So it does happen.
Yeah. And people that are watching this, hopefully we reach it. If there's anyone that's ever, thinking about adoption, this could be a segue into that, being a CASA advocate, because if they're seeing that side of, hey, what they might be getting into adopting and stuff too as well. So there's a lot of avenues that, CASA can benefit people that are thinking of this stuff.
I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble for this or not, but I've got fantastic fosters in my current case that live in Argyle. So they may catch this. I didn't want to ignore you. You guys are fantastic.
So are you still fostering or?
No. So when you work for CASA, you cannot foster, and you cannot be a foster parent. You can't have an open home as a foster parent and be an advocate,
Okay.
and you can't work for CASA and have an open foster home, because if a child were to come into care, and I say I would get the call for that child, it would be seen like I would got like
Preferential treatment.
yes, exactly,
Gotcha.
because I work there or the advocate is there. So you
Gotcha.
can't do that. It's just which is fine. We are very happy with our little girl. And
Well, you're still involved in the process, right?
we're
You're
still
just,
very
like,
involved. I hear the stories. I think sometimes.
And you have a great story to share that's very inspirational for people to hear how they can, and whether you're trying to adopt a child or not, but you're able to clearly come in and make a dramatic difference in the child's life.
You're just trying to change their story.
Yep.
You're just trying to like change the outcome and maybe just help it a little bit along the way. Whether that changes everything for them in the long run, but maybe make this time in their life just a little bit easier. And maybe have someone in their corner for once.
Right.
And that's really what you want.
Yeah.
And it's such an amazing cause, and I'm so happy that I actually get to work there now. It's like worked out perfectly, because being a foster parent like this works out well. And like seeing Richard again now. We got to see
Awesome.
each other twice this week.
That's
which
right.
is
That's right.
amazing.
If someone wants to become a CASA,
Yeah.
how do they find you guys, and
Well, you can-
what's the process?
You can visit us on the website at casadenton.org. You can email me, and we can get you started. The first step is attending an info session where we kind of just go through the basics of what it takes to be an advocate, the training that's involved, and then we start you on a training.
Awesome. And then
And I will say, once you get sworn in, you will have a case waiting for you at the courthouse.
Oh,
So that's a question that we get from advocates. They're like, well, when will we get our first case? And I said, on the day you're sworn in, you will have a case. Like, don't you worry. We have one waiting for you. So
There's a
our
need.
full-time staff members are taking cases more and more, and we just really need, we just need more advocates to help support, because there's more children coming into care.
And she mentioned that we saw each other. April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. And so several of the city councils during various meetings in April were doing proclamations and, basically recognizing what CASA of Denton County does for the children in this community, in the various communities here. And so that's why that's why I got to, see her daughter again. And that was emotional for me. I'm sitting up on the dais, and, I hadn't seen this little girl in 2 years. And so it was great seeing how well she's doing. So it really is emotionally, rewarding to be a part of that. And again, anyone that I run into that is interested and asks, I'm always happy to, give them the honest, of what to expect. I don't want to, make anyone think that there's never anything heartbreaking that you'll ever see, but there is. But the fact that you get to make it better is, and just like we talk about that entrepreneurial spirit, right? At some point you stand up and you're gonna be the solution. And so that's one of the things that I'm happy to help promote and try to help recruit advocates as well.
Awesome.
I love that that you're sitting here, you're not just talking about it, you're taking action.
Yep.
And being the leader of the colony, the mayor, for someone to be taking action in the position that you're at, that's
Right.
I love that. Absolutely love that.
And so I was on city council when I became an advocate, and then in 2021, I became mayor. I thought, am I still going to be able to do this? And it's just one of those things where I couldn't stop doing it. So I couldn't, stop the involvement. I didn't want to think that there's somebody out there who's, waiting for somebody to be their voice. So I found a way to continue to make it work.
A quick, honest request. This podcast doesn't have sponsors. There's nothing we're selling, no ad you skipped. We pay for everything ourselves. If this was worth your time, the smallest thing you can do is hit subscribe. Takes 1 second, costs nothing. That's the whole ask. Thank you. See you on the next episode.